Anybody have any questions or concerns? Wood turning related or woodworking related? Here's an opportune time to ask said question, and we can see between the 70 some odd people that's on here, and sure somebody's got an
Well,
answer for it.
actually, yes. Um, Now I've heard tonight putting sanding sealer on more than once. I never did that. Is that just because the wood would be just like a little bit more punky, or does that do a different a different kind of a finish?
Yeah, what
Um,
it does, Al, is it raises the grain and locks it in place. So I don't know. I mean, there are a bunch of different sanding sealers, but the one I use is a rattle can spray lacquer based sanding sealer.
I don't.
Okay.
I use a wipe on. I think maybe might be bin wax. Of
Okay.
a gallon.
Well, yeah, but
So
idea is
that's different, right? That's different.
it is different, but it may behave the same. But the bottom line is you're trying to raise the grain and lock the grain in place so you can sand it. Okay. So
Right.
not only are you sealing the wood, but you're also taking care of the fuzzies and raising the grain to get a smoother surface. So if I'm and this works best on large platters when you're going to be painting or embellishing. So if I'm burning or painting or dot painting, I will use sanding sealer, and I'm not spraying heavy coats. I'm spraying light coats, and I'm sanding it back. So what I get a sealed, smooth surface that is smooth enough that the paint goes on very evenly, but rough enough that the paint has something to grab onto. Okay.
Right.
And it gives you a very consistent, clean surface, and you don't get, and it's sealed so that you don't get like paint or stain seeping into the grain places where you don't want it to, and that kind of
Okay. Yeah.
stuff.
Okay. 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 All right. Right. Right.
I saw a new technique recently. Malcolm Tibbetts, where we'll apply several coats of sanding sealer, but rather than sanding in between coats, he actually will use cabinet scrapers or a wood turning scraper, and he shear scrapes the surface in between coats.
I have done that also, Billy. I have cabinet scrapers and have used them
Me too.
on wood turning. Yeah. So
I just
that's
haven't done
something
it
I
with sanding sealer.
yeah. Well, and I have done things like sprayed sanding sealer, sprayed 2 or 3 coats of sanding sealer, and then come back with a tool and made a shearing cut with a normal high speed steel tool, just to get, especially if I'm using a very punky wood and I've got some tear out that is a little bit more than usual, then the sanding sealer will fix all that in place, and I can come back with a couple of take a 30-second off of everything and get a nice clean surface with the
The,
tool.
the reason why I'm even talking about it is the pieces I showed tonight was just ridiculously. It should have been burned. It was just a shaving off of something of I don't know how old the tree fell or anything like that, but I guess it fell for a reason, and the wood was there for a reason, rotting. Um, but yes, that did a lot for me more than once, putting it on, and I was doing it for one reason, but I heard tonight where before you finished, you did it a second time. That was the reason why I asked. You know,
Hey Al, I've taken punky wood like what you're talking about. I got a lot of spalted wood, um,
sure,
and
right.
I've painted on thick, thick amounts of sanding sealer, let it dry, sand it back a little bit, do it again, do it again, do it again, and that hardens up that punky wood, and
Mhm.
that'll make things a whole lot better for you. It's a whole lot cheaper and I think safer for you than some of the wood
It, it,
hardeners that are out there.
it,
So
it did. That was how I was able to get it. Just keep applying the coats, you know.
Yeah,
And
I've turned some willow and cottonwood, both of which are very soft and very stringy, and
Oh yes.
that's how you get a workable finish, a workable surface to do your finish on it with, is you're using sanding sealer to get to harden things up. So
It sure does. It
So
sure
Al,
does.
Al,
Yes.
I make
Yes.
I make shellac sanding sealer with Everclear alcohol and shellac, and I use a 60-40 mix, 60% alcohol, 40% shellac. And this piece here has 3 coats on it. I put 1 coat on it to sand it, then the second 2 coats were my buffing coats. See the shine just out of that shellac. Now I'll go along with put a 2-pound cut of shellac on at the end, and that'll be my final finish. And it hardens the wood. It'll take things that are punky and harden it, because that
Right.
40 cut will soak in and make it hard enough you can sand it or cut it again with a tool, like Matt says.
Shellac and what'd you say? Denatured alcohol.
Shellac, I use blonde shellac flakes and denatured alcohol.
All right.
I make my own, so this is actually food safe. You could chew on this if you wanted to.
You don't use
I
denatured. You
use
use
Everclear
ethanol.
alcohol, which is bought in a liquor store. I don't use denatured. I use actual moonshine is what it is.
If I bought that, I would drink it.
No, you wouldn't drink this stuff because it tastes horrible.
I'm only goofing. I wouldn't drink it. Oh my God, my eyes are already bad. That would make you blind, right?
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah, the bad stuff.
I
That's
have
what I
noticed
use.
I have noticed with my turnies, even when I'm working with a good piece of hard maple, I always do 2 coats of sanding sealer with some light sanding in between with a green Scotch Brite or Scotch pad. And then I do my axe wood paste, and the difference is night and day between 1 coat of sanding sealer and 2. It just comes out so much shinier and nicer.
Good. That's
One of the
I always
members,
recommend 2.
one of the members of our local club worked at PPG, and I asked him about sanding sealers. He said sanding sealer is the same as the material, like lacquer sanding sealer is the same thing as lacquer, only it's much thinner. It's made to hold the grain so you can sand it and then put a coat of finish on it.
yeah,
that's
yeah,
probably Jim. That's probably the reason why when you put that sealer on there, the sanding sealer, you get that pop right there. That's probably the lacquer part of it.
Well, any of it, if it's no matter what kind of sealer it is, there's all kinds of sanding sealers. It's the same as the finish. There's poly sanding sealers, there's all kinds of them. It's the same thing, only it's cut. It's way thinner.
Yeah.
People that are sanding or finishing their pieces with 2 coats of sanding sealer are using the same stuff. It's just much thinner. You're getting way less buildup. But it's made to not build up, so you can sand it easy and then put another coat on.
And we do that.
yeah, and when I run out of sanding sealer, I'll just use lacquer if I've got it sitting in just straight up finished lacquer that I've got sitting in the shop.
One's a lot more expensive than the other.
No, they're about the same for me. I don't know,
Yeah.
about $10 a can. So
I can get a gallon. I can get a gallon of sanding sealer, same price I get lacquer. A quart of lacquer.
I hear you.
Yeah, the sanding sealer is actually half the thickness, or maybe less than that. It's
Less than
mostly
that.
thinner.
So
Yeah,
mix it
and
with
that's how-
lacquer. So mix it with lacquer thinner.
Yeah, just make your own lacquer thinner.
Yeah, it'd be the
Right.
same.
I've got a question about sanding sealers. What are the characteristic differences between the cellulose sanding sealer and the new melamine sanding sealers? Does anybody know?
Well, melamine would have plastic in it, right? Cellulose is a wood-based product.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.